two quotes that make you say, do you still trust him? Two types of players in this world, and the enigma that is the main guy of the Utah Jazz. It's all up on today's edition of Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. Yo, that's what matters. Boom, 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 boom. Really, Carlos, what matters? Boom, 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 boom. Number one record. Boom, boom, boom. You getting paid? Boom, boom, boom. Or were you just talking and didn't realize what you said? Boom, 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 boom. All right. So we had the great Al Jefferson quote about we can't beat the Spurs. They're just too good. All of that. It definitely felt a little bizarre. My take on that was I don't think Al has the most grandiose buffer, and he kind of just says what he's thinking. And the fact that's the most controversial thing he said in 2 years probably tells us a lot about who Al is. And we'll talk more about Al on today's tip-off because I'm preparing to do my season previews or season reviews of individual players, and I still have no idea on Al Jefferson. But Carlos Boozer has one. Carlos Boozer, quote, remember the Bulls got eliminated last night by Philadelphia. Derrick Rose got hurt, so their season kind of fell short. I thought I played well, especially with the kind of season it was. We had the best record in basketball, won our division again, had the top seed again. That's all that matters, yo. Let's try that again. I thought I played well, especially with the kind of season it was. We had the best record again in basketball, won our division again, had the top seed again. That's all that matters, yo. Wow, Carlos. That makes me begin to wonder about all sorts of things, that quote. But I'll just guess that, as I always feel, if you put a mic on all of us every day, sorry, allergies are sparking up, and I know you just heard that. If you put a mic on all of us, we'd misspeak too. But that quote by Carlos makes me just kind of look back at, like, what were we playing for? That's all that matters, yo. That's fabulous. Lakers get blasted last night. We'll talk about Al Jefferson here in a second. Lakers get blasted last night. And they now go to a game 7. And Kobe definitely is playing better than Gasol and better than Bynum. I got it. But let me ask you this question. Do you trust Kobe Bryant still in a game 7 to will his team to a win? And really what I'm asking, do you trust Kobe Bryant's body to actually play along with 40,000 plus minutes on the docket to be able to win a game? Like, I think that's the most interesting thing here is in the game 7s are almost always won by the team that is at home. Home teams win game 7. So, and the Lakers probably win this game. I think there's a level where Gasol, as bad as he was last night, has still put together enough of a resume and done enough things that he should be able to play better. Bynum, I don't know. Bynum's a wild card, man. Tex Winter always, and Roland Lazenby has written a lot about this. Tex Winter was always really concerned about who Andrew Bynum was. But the bottom line on this is that it comes down to Kobe in that moment, in that time. And I'm going to guess they'll be fine. But I'm not sure I trust Kobe anymore. I'm not sure I trust Kobe in a game 7. His mind's there, but will his body answer? And playing the way Denver plays is exhausting. They'll be at home. I'm not entirely sure who on Denver, by the way, I believe can make the plays that need to be made. I've tweeted this out a few times. I'm a huge believer in Gallinari. I think Gallinari is fabulous. When I run some numbers on him, he and James Harden were the two players I talked about exploding this year. Harden did it. Gallinari got hurt. But they're 27 and 16 when Gallinari plays. So their record when Gallinari's on the floor is better or about the exact same than what the Lakers was all season long. So therefore, I would say that game's a lot closer than people realize. That's an interesting game. Lakers lose game 7. What do they do in the offseason? How desperate are they with their new TV contract coming to regain that fan base, particularly if the Clippers advance? Woo! That gets crazy. I still think there's a chance Darren ends up there. We shall see. By the way, I want to thank everybody. I got a ton of responses, which was fabulous. I really appreciate everyone just kind of giving me some insight on how you take in this information. It's important. A lot of you, one of the maybe important things I'm recording later today is that a lot of you talked about how you take it on the way to work. So it's important that even in the summer when I don't need to, I still get up and maybe bust this out on the earlier end of things than I have in the past. So I appreciate it. Great insight, and interesting how our technology is changing. So thank you all for that. It was an interesting article and pieces I've been writing about recently, and I talked about this actually in the final game of the season. Ron Boone and I talked about that. You're either a high-energy player in the NBA or you're not. I think you run through the Jazz roster, and there's guys that are either high-energy players or they're not high-energy players. You just can't be – you either are or you aren't. Paul Millsap is a high-energy player. Favors is a high-energy player. I think Gordon's a high-energy player. Other guys, Damari Carroll's the essence of a high-energy player. Raja, by the time he got here, was no longer that high-energy player. CJ, I don't think, was ever a high-energy player. He did some things, but he was never a high-energy player. I think you're either a high-energy player or not. You got to have skills. We can talk about all these things. When you scout players, I really think there's one you'll never know about. There's two things that I think are defining a little bit about players. And I do believe numbers show this. Like the whole idea, Bowler and I used to debate this all the time. Well, numbers don't show that. No, actually, numbers do show that because that high energy plays out to productivity. Whereas sometimes players who put up numbers who are low energy, that's where suddenly their plus minus is bad or things of that nature, and you wonder why. So I do think numbers show it. Your eyeballs show it as well, but you got to think about a player, and when you evaluate a player, is he high energy or is he not? And then the second level on players is there's really very little in between this. Players are either playing for the team or their numbers, and there's very little in between on those. I'm going to talk about Al here for a few minutes. There's no question on Al, he's playing for the team. He gets his numbers, but he does want the team to win. He's a good dude in that regard. And he is definitely, but I don't think he's just not a high energy guy. I mean, he even tells the story in our Locker Clearout interview on the Mega Podcast about Devin Harris yelling at him for Tim Duncan running down the floor past him in Game 4. It's just he's got to think to go where Duncan I think is a high energy guy who just goes, and that's the two level of players. When you evaluate players, you sometimes have to look at that. I think that's Andrew Bynum, I just don't think he's a high-energy guy. And so there's nights like last night where he doesn't get going. And I'm not sure where Gasol is at this point in his career in that regard. So players change over time as well on whether they're high-energy players or not. Some, maybe and some may not. Some nights you can be, but just not by definition as well. My tweet just came in. Hey, no tip-off. What's going on? So I'm going to start doing some of my player reviews, very numerical based, how we did with them on the floor, best lineups when they were on the floor, shooting positions, lock number breakdowns, a lot of graphs and stuff as much as anything written on these players, and we'll look at some synergy stuff as well. And hopefully it can kind of build a template. I haven't quite mastered it yet. But I get to Al Jefferson, really doing Al Jefferson here, and I still have no idea. What I know about Al is he's a great dude. He wants to do well. He's working hard. He is a super teammate in the sense he's going to try to bring those guys around. He's going to support the younger players every step that he possibly can. He's bringing them up to Santa Barbara. He wants to win. I'm not sure he always knows how to win. So all of those items, Al's terrific. Now you take all the emotional stuff out and just look at who he is as a player. Where does he rank as an efficient player? Uh, how does he deal defensively? Those numbers don't look great. I think his plus minus this year was good for the first time in a long time, which is nice. And that's what leads me to this great enigma. Al's got, if you talk to Tyrone, Al's a very valuable player to him because he can go to the post, give him the ball, and get a shot off. And frankly, Favors and Millsap aren't going to finish those shots. And so on our roster, he might be even more valuable than somebody else. But then I go look at my other numbers and say, wait a sec. When he does use that possession, it's not much more than above league average or at league average. So now I'm giving, which was better this year than it has been in the past, but now I'm giving 25 possessions a night to a guy that's at league average, not 25, but 20 possessions a night to a guy that's at or below league average. I'm not sure that's the best thing I've ever done. So I find him to be an incredible enigma of trying to decide whether can you really win with him? Is he really a bona fide number one guy? Where does he fit? All of these things. I don't have that answer at all. And I find it very difficult. The interesting was we started the show with Boozer. Numerically, Boozer is so far a superior player. He shoots, his last full year in Utah at 09-10, he shot 56%. He averaged 20 points and 11 rebounds. He was a better rebounder. He was one of my elite players in the league on the Locke offensive ratings. He's really special. So I would tell you that I think when you look at who Al is, I'm still not certain. And I'll put this piece together for everyone to read. Al this year was slightly above league average, but right at it. His Locke offensive rating wasn't great. He shot 49% with the free throw line 6.6 times a game, or 6.6% of his possessions. It's incredibly low. On the other end, it's 19 points and 10 rebounds a game. Those can't be ignored. 20 possessions a night, but if you move those 20 possessions around, both Millsap and Favors come out in my book as better players with better numerical productivity. But I'm not entirely sure you can just go give the ball to Paul or give the ball to Derek and get a shot off. It's I find this truly, there's no question on what a good guy is. And there's no question on how much he wants to win. And there's no question to some extent how he's improving. But I think it's a very, very complicated situation. So I'll write some more about it. Let you guys evaluate on your own. Try to give you all the data and let you choose. Some interesting notes around the NBA. Mike D'Antoni possibly to Orlando, which Steve Nash is obviously lingering out there. We'll keep an eye on that. And then keep an eye on college football today. I talked to some people yesterday who tell me that the Big East thing is not holding. That Utah State getting into the Mountain West may turn out to be golden because San Diego State and Boise might be on their way back. And so keep an eye on all that because I think something's going to break in that regard in the next – today's Friday, maybe today from what I heard. But there's some stuff going on there. And Boise was – I don't have all the pieces, so I'm just going to leave it as that. I have a lot of information. I don't have enough of it confirmed. And a lot of it has to do with the way they're dealing with some other things other than football that makes you wonder if they suddenly want out of the Big East. So we'll see what happens, see if that story breaks somewhere along the way from what I'm hearing. All right, there's your tip-off. Sorry for the later shot today. I got the kids out on a different schedule than usual. Have a good one.